Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence will now come to order. Without objection, the committee may recess at any point. The purpose of today's business meeting is to consider and release the committee's 9/11 Commission Review Final Report. I want to particularly thank the co-chairs of the committee's 9/11 Task Force, Ms. Stefanik from New York, Mr. Gottheimer from New Jersey. Each of you agreed to personally take on this challenge to review the intelligence posture of our nation in the intervening 25 years since the infamous day our nation was attacked and subsequent actions to keep and defend America's commitment to freedom. I also want to thank committee staff who have worked tirelessly to assist in the drafting of this report with appropriate sensitivity, professionalism, and substantive expertise that this subject entails. I want to similarly thank those who have graciously offered to host us here in Shanksville today, including event organizers, memorial staff, and security. Each of your involvement has been critical and very much appreciated. Finally, I want to offer my sincere appreciation to the family, friends, and colleagues of the heroes of Flight 93 for joining us today. Your loved ones' sacrifice and your own are seared into our memories and our hearts. Before we begin the formal business of this hearing, I want to acknowledge where we are and, more importantly, who's with us today. We're gathered on sacred ground. 25 years ago, 40 passengers and crew members aboard United Flight 93 found themselves in circumstances none of us can fully imagine. In a matter of minutes, ordinary Americans were confronted with an extraordinary choice. They learned what was happening elsewhere in our country. They understood what was likely happening aboard their own aircraft, and they acted. Because of these heroes' actions, the terrorists aboard Flight 93 did not reach their intended target. Their courage saved lives, and their sacrifice became part of the story of September 11th and part of the story of America. To the family members of those passengers and crew who are here with us today, thank you for allowing us to share this place with you. We know that September 11th is not simply history to you, it's personal. The people whose names are memorialized here were your husbands and wives, your mothers and fathers, your sons, your daughters, your brothers and sisters, and your friends. Nothing this committee says or does can repay what your families gave our country. But we can remember. We can learn. We can do everything within our power to make sure the government of the United States never becomes complacent about the responsibility entrusted to us. That's why we're here. Our committee undertook this review because the 25th anniversary of September 11th should be more than a moment of remembrance. It should also be a moment of accountability. The original 9/11 Commission identified profound intelligence, policy, structural, and information sharing failures that contributed to our inability to prevent these attacks. Its recommendations fundamentally reshaped the intelligence community, leading to the creation of the Director of National Intelligence and the National Counterterrorism Center and significant reforms in information sharing, interagency coordination, and congressional oversight. 25 years later, we believed Congress had an obligation to ask a straightforward question. Did these reforms work? And then an equally important question, are they enough for the threats America faces today? In many respects, the answer to the first question is yes. The reforms adopted after September 11th have largely succeeded in their most fundamental purpose, helping prevent another terrorist attack of the magnitude of 9/11 on American soil. That's an extraordinary accomplishment, and we should recognize the thousands of intelligence professionals, law enforcement officers, military personnel, diplomats, and others who've quietly contributed to that success over the last quarter century. But the answer to the second question is more complicated. The world of 2026 is not the world of 2001. We still face terrorism. We also face increasingly aggressive nation-state adversaries, sophisticated counterintelligence operations, cyber attacks, foreign malign influence, economic warfare, rapidly advancing artificial intelligence, biotechnology, drones, and autonomous systems, and threats to critical infrastructure. Many of these threats don't fit neatly into the bureaucratic boxes our government created decades ago. Our adversaries understand that. They do not organize themselves around our committee jurisdictions or agency organizational charts or the line separating foreign and domestic threats. They organize around our vulnerabilities. And that brings us to perhaps the most important lesson of September 11th. The 9/11 Commission described a failure of imagination. 25 years later, we cannot allow ourselves to make that mistake again. The next strategic attack against the United States may not involve hijacked airplanes. It may begin in cyberspace. It may target our power grid or telecommunications systems, or it may involve artificial intelligence, biological threats, economic coercion, or capabilities we've not yet fully contemplated. As our report concludes, the next 9/11 might not look like 9/11, but its consequences could be just as grave. That's the purpose of this work. I also want to recognize that this has been a genuinely bipartisan undertaking. I want to thank Ranking Member Jim Himes for his partnership and his commitment to the serious oversight responsibilities of this committee. And I especially want to thank our two task force co-chairs, Elise Stefanik and Josh Gottheimer. They have invested considerable time and effort in this review, examining the reforms that followed September 11th, evaluating where they succeeded, identifying where gaps remain, and considering how an intelligence community built largely in response to the threats of yesterday must adapt to the threats of tomorrow. The report itself reflects the bipartisan leadership of the chairman, ranking member, and both task force co-chairs. There will be disagreements about particular policies, and there should be. Serious oversight requires serious debate. However, there should be no partisan disagreement about the mission: protect the American people, defend their constitutional liberties, and never stop asking whether we're prepared for the threat we have not yet imagined. Finally, I want to return to the families here today. Throughout this review, we've tried to keep the victims of September 11th and their families at the center of our work. Our report says that explicitly. At every point in compiling it, we kept the victims and their families in mind and sought to honor their sacrifice. Here at Flight 93, those words carry a weight that cannot be borne in a hearing room in Washington. 25 years ago, the Americans aboard that airplane did not wait for someone else to act. When the moment came, they acted. Our government owes them the same resolve. We should not wait for another catastrophe to expose the vulnerabilities we can see today. We should identify them. We should confront them, and we should act. That's how we honor the 40 heroes of Flight 93. That's how we honor all 2,977 innocent lives taken on September 11th. It's how we honor the first responders who ran with courage to save their fellow Americans. That's how we fulfill our obligation to the generations of Americans who came after them. May God bless their families. May God bless all those who continue to defend this nation. And may God bless the United States of America. I now recognize the ranking member for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Crawford. What a deeply meaningful privilege to be here today at the Flight 93 Memorial and to have been joined by the remarkable family members of those lost and the first responders to that horrific tragedy. The story of those on Flight 93 is one of unimaginable courage and sacrifice, and the American people and members of Congress in particular owe a lifelong debt of gratitude to those heroes. I very much appreciate the leadership of Chairman Crawford as well as Congresswoman Stefanik and Congressman Gottheimer in establishing a task force to look back at the findings of the 9/11 Commission. The Commission identified numerous areas for reform following the attacks, and most of those have been implemented, at least in part. But we need to remain vigilant in our oversight of the intelligence community with respect to counterterrorism as well as other missions that have come to the fore. Looking back at the 9/11 Commission's report with the benefit of 2 decades of hindsight, the committee developed a number of recommendations and findings. I will support the motion to report the committee's work, and I thank the members and staff who contributed to that large effort. From my perspective, a couple of themes stand out. First, the Commission emphasized the tremendous value of deep subject matter expertise. They warned that this knowledge base takes years to build and cannot easily be replicated or outsourced. Our greatest asset within the IC is our people, and they are, by and large, tremendously talented and focused on their mission. That rings true to me today because I've been concerned about a brain drain out of the IC, whether through retirements or otherwise. We collectively need to make sure that our cadre of IC professionals is strong and that they are allowed to do their jobs within the law and without fear of retribution if they say the wrong thing. That culture and talent pool is hard to create and easy to destroy, and we need to remain focused on preserving our single greatest advantage. Second, intelligence sharing and cross-agency integration are key. I was so thrilled to have the new Director of National Intelligence here to hear us reiterate that point. We can best counter threats when people from across the IC come together and bring diverse perspectives and expertise to attack a problem, as they do with the National Counterterrorism Center. In the world of classified information, stovepipes can and do arise, and one of our core missions should be to break those down and to make sure that information gets where it needs to go to disrupt threats of all kind. Finally, just as the Commission identified a failure of imagination that helped leave open the vulnerabilities that allowed 9/11 to occur, we need to be vigilant today. The Chairman said it exactly right with a long list of potential threats. The one thing we know for sure is the next war and the next attack will not look like the last war or the last attack. 25 years on, we carry these and other lessons with us in our work to Congress and within the intelligence community. Our job will never be finished, but we can take this occasion on this hallowed ground, to rededicate ourselves to working in a constructive and bipartisan fashion to protect the American people. I appreciate the partnership I have with Chairman Crawford and all the members in the committee to do precisely that, and I yield back.
Thank you. I now recognize the task force chair, the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Stefani.
Thank you, Chairman Crawford. As co-chair of the committee's 9/11 Bipartisan Commission Task Force, it is truly an honor to be here today at the Flight 93 National Memorial, where we remember and honor the heroism of the 40 on September 11th. And I know, as you've heard from all of the members on this committee, today was extraordinarily meaningful, and we will take it with us not only in our service in Congress, but for the rest of our lives. Thank you to the family members of those heroes. I also want to thank the National Park Service, the incredible work that you do to memorialize this hallowed ground and to maintain it and to teach it to the next generation. We will never forget their sacrifice and the immense courage that the heroes displayed in the face of great evil. Not a day goes by where the events of 9/11 don't touch on some aspect of our daily lives. I want to thank Chairman Crawford for making this report a true priority of this committee, and also want to thank Ranking Member Jim Himes for ensuring that we've seen bipartisan leadership. This important 25th anniversary is deserving of a renewal of efforts, and I'm proud to have co-chaired this with my colleague and close friend, Josh Gottheimer. Today's vote marks the culmination of a year of this committee's review of the 9/11 Commission report. While the threats have changed over the last quarter century, our mission in Congress and on this committee have not, keeping the American people safe. Achieving this objective looks a lot different today than it did 25 years ago. One of the key themes gleaned from our review of the 9/11 Commission report was that we cannot afford another, quote, failure of imagination. Our committee attempted with this report to think big picture and address where and how America may be vulnerable today and what we can do to address these security gaps to ensure it never happens again. Of particular importance was our review of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, cyber, drones, and influence operations and campaigns. To combat these new lines of attack, our report concludes that we must pursue a whole-of-government approach. We need to continue to strengthen information sharing and collaboration within the intelligence community and between all of the federal agencies, but we also need to continue to improve our work with state, local, and tribal partners. To meet the national security challenges of our day, it also requires a unity of effort with our industry partners in the private sector. Expert witnesses before this committee continuously stressed how important it is that private companies realize that they must also be on the front lines in this fight, not just the government. Throughout our open hearings and closed-door meetings, one thing was very clear. Every facet of our society must work in concert to deter threats and keep the American people safe. This report offers a roadmap to continue to strengthen our national security. We must also teach the next generation of Americans the importance of that day, not only to memorialize the heroes, but to teach them what it means to be a fellow American. The extraordinary actions by these heroes embody every quality that our nation stands for. The heroes of Flight 93 prevented further bloodshed and prevented a tragedy from taking place at our nation's capital. I hope that all of the people that joined us today are inspired to live by the same virtues these 40 heroes lived by, and that we can come together as a nation and confront the next generation of threats with the same resolve. With that, I yield back to Chairman Crawford.
I thank the gentlewoman. Now recognize co-chair Congressman Josh Gottheimer from New Jersey for an opening statement.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your leadership and for bringing us together, you and the ranking member. Very grateful for spearheading this. And I want to thank Director Clayton for having spent time with us today. It's a very important role, and I think hearing from us directly is critically important. I want to thank the Park Service, the National Park Service, for all they do every single day with limited resources and bringing this together and working so closely with the families and all those who have decided to dedicate their lives to teaching others who are here every single day. So thank you so much to all of you. Being here at Flight 93 Memorial in Shanksville, I think it's impossible for all of us not to feel the weight of these hallowed grounds and impossible not to be moved by the family members and everyone we heard from today who shared their stories. The brave 40 men and women on this field who gave their lives puts the lives of other Americans. It just really, from a gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching moment, puts it all in perspective. Those who stood up put their lives and their families ahead of others on that morning of September 11th. I'll never forget those calls that some of my colleagues mentioned that we listened to today and what I learned from the family members. May God continue to bless and watch over their souls and their loved ones. Because of their grit and heroism right here, an uncountable number of lives were saved that day in our nation's capital. Their loss was hardly in vain, though. It led not only to the 9/11 Commission and report in 2004, but it also, I think, left an indelible mark for future generations of Americans. It showed what heroism is really all about. Every American, and especially every American young person, should have to come here and visit here. And obviously had a huge impact on our intelligence community to ensure we were better prepared for the threats ahead. But the fight against terror, as the co-chair and ranking member and chairman said, isn't static. Our adversaries and their weapons of war, as part of the global war on terror, are always evolving. We too must evolve and be prepared for any threat. That is why today, after the last year of work, we are formally releasing our bipartisan 25-year review of the original 9/11 Commission report. It represents a comprehensive examination of how the report's initial recommendations and subsequent actions materialized and evolved across the intelligence community and what new reforms are needed to confront the novel threats facing our nation today. I'm proud to have helped lead this effort with my colleague, Representative Elise Stefanik, and I'm grateful for her partnership, friendship, and leadership. It is the product of months of hard work and hearings. I also want to thank the team, the staff, who did an incredible job in helping us. Some of the 9/11 Commission's most impactful recommendations for reforming the intelligence community are still critical for today's threat landscape. Take, for example, the National Counterterrorism Center. For more than 20 years, it has tracked terrorist groups and warned us about plots before they occurred. It's evolved and strengthened across these years. Similarly, the Director of National Intelligence was established after 9/11 for a clear reason: to put someone with a deep national security expertise at the head of the community, capable of integrating and coordinating between 18 intelligence agencies to both prevent stovepiping and to advise the President and us on the threats we face. At the same time, the threat landscape has greatly expanded. Over the course of this project, we've heard from national security experts about those emerging challenges, including our adversaries' rapidly expanding capabilities in cyber warfare, bioengineering, and artificial intelligence. We can't fear these new threats. We must be prepared for them with the tools and agile organizational structure and all the best men and women in the IC as possible to overcome them. That is one of the greatest lessons from September 11th, 2001, and from this field in Shanksville. We learned the hard way what the intelligence community was, in many ways, ill-equipped to combat and warn us against unconventional threats, including an enemy that was not a nation-state, but instead a rogue terror group with the ability to gather substantial resources and do great harm to our friends, families, and neighbors. Many of the new threats we face today are similarly complex and lurk online. Looking forward, as the original and today's report highlights, we need to ensure that our intelligence agencies are flexible enough to follow threats against bureaucracies and offices without duplicative work and with seamless communication. We're very lucky to have the best and brightest in the community. The key is to maximize their talents and our tools and to continually recruit the next generation and never allow bureaucracy or interagency bravado to get in the way. If we focus on deep and cutting-edge expertise and tools, top-notch talent and training, proactive information sharing, and seamless cross-agency integration, there's nothing that can stop the greatest country that the world has ever known. The next threat will take new imagination. And I do want to thank some of our colleagues here who served after 9/11. I just want to thank you for stepping up and answering the call as well, because we need to hear from you continuously and recruit the next generation. We hope this conversation, our recommendations, will help ensure that our best days are ahead of us. And as her grandson was one of Nancy's grandsons said, the good guys will continue to win. I believe that. But it will take all of us working together as Americans, not as Democrats or Republicans. So thank you. May God bless the 40 souls we honor on this field, the 2,976 Americans who gave their lives that day, and those who've given their lives since, in the service, including the servicemen and women, and for our great country, the greatest the world's ever known. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. And before we open up to member questions, due to the tight schedule, I ask unanimous consent to limit your comments to 3 minutes without objection. So ordered. That said, now recognize Vice Chairman Kelly. Any comments?
Just very briefly, this hallowed ground, to our National Park Service, to all the family members who survived those heroes, we can never forget. I hope that this commission report will help us stay vigilant and stay in tune to what the intelligence community and the whole of government has to do to make sure that we prevent this from ever happening again, or at least if we don't, that we've done everything within our power to make sure that everyone is lockstep in doing that. So I thank each of our Democratic and Republican colleagues here for your vigilance in this, and with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Mr. LaHood.
I have nothing further to add beyond my comments earlier. I do want to thank our co-chairs, Ms. Stefanik and Mr. Gottheimer, for the great work they've done in putting together this report.
Gentleman yields. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, our country has never been more united than we were on September 11th and thereafter. Across the board, people treating other people like human beings, mutual respect, mutual love, and the words never again have to mean something. They can't just be words. They have to be followed with action, and that's a responsibility of this committee. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I again go back to the day, September 11th. I know exactly where I was, and I watched the country come together and hold hands together and cry together and pray together. I want to highlight one comment in this report. The overclassification of information has emerged as a potential obstacle to ensuring timely and actionable intelligence on various threat streams reaching state and local law enforcement and stakeholders. I again continue to be concerned about the overclassification of information that our state and local law enforcement need to protect us. And I think obviously this is a reminder of how good otherwise everyday Americans have been at protecting us. And I think that when we see those threat streams, we need to make sure that we are sharing them with the American citizens. With that, I yield.
Gentleman yields. Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank Mr. Gottheimer and Ms. Stefanik for their work on this report. I think it reflects not only the follow-up from 9/11 and the attempt to fuse intelligence and the attempt to avoid a failure of imagination. I think that's been made clear by the National Counterterrorism Center and the results that we've seen from them over the years. But I want to say I appreciate them moving this discussion forward, both in correcting things that were never completed following 9/11, like biometric admission and tracking in the United States. I don't want to use the word tracking. I know that's triggering for some people. But people entering the country and exiting the country that we actually know who they are, that they're properly documented. But this committee over the last 3 years has identified the fact that we do not still share and fuse information between the Transportation Safety Administration, the Customs and Border Patrol Administration, and have that integrated with the threats that our homeland faces. So I thought that was a very important part of the report. I commend the co-chairs of the task force of that work. And secondly, the forward-looking aspect of what we're confronted with in technology. And where we have the imagination. The question is, do we have the ways and means to tackle that imagination with what we have as a threat going forward from space and from technology and in cyber? So my congratulations to the task force. I'm very supportive of this report. I'm glad we're marking it up here in historic Shanksville and are able to pay a personal, emotional, connected tribute to the families of the 40.
Gentleman yields. Mr. Crenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for all your work on this, co-chairs and chairman. There's a couple recommendations here I want to highlight. One continues to be a grave concern to me, which is our issues with the counter-UAS and our complete lack of strategy as a country. Working on legislation in a bipartisan way with members on this committee towards that end, and I can't emphasize enough how important that is. I'm glad it's in this report. I truly believe that if there is a next big attack, it will very clearly use the drones and UAS. I'd also want to highlight how important I think it is, and it is also in this report, that this committee be able to have a greater effect on its own appropriations. And there's no other committee, except for maybe HPSCI, where that issue is more important. We spend a lot of time diving into the details of a variety of subjects, and to then lose complete power over how those topics might be funded is not the way people might expect this place to work. So I'm glad that's in this report, and great work, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman, and I just personally want to thank the gentleman for his service to this country, the sacrifice you've made, and your contribution to this committee. I appreciate that. Gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Perry, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the co-chairs for the effort and the work and the input and the time spent and the sacrifices made getting this report out here. Also thanking the Park Service, the family members, law enforcement, and everybody that has something to do with the continued commitment to making sure that Americans don't forget that that this stays close to our heart, and that those sacrifices by regular people, regular Americans on the front lines didn't sign up for anything when they bought an airplane ticket, but found themselves in a very dire situation where things could have gone very differently. And it's easy for us to say now, but God bless them and God bless you for your commitment and your continued commitment. With that having been said, we report in particular, I want to agree with Mr. Crenshaw on the appropriations issue. It's long time. It's long overdue that the people that are dealing with this are the ones that are making decisions about how they're funded. And this game has got to end. The only other thing I want to just echo is what I kind of said before. Whether it's a drone attack or some other imaginative attack, look, on 9/11, most Americans had no idea who Osama bin Laden was at that moment. There's been a lot of attacks around the world since, and there were a lot of attacks prior to that, and they're coming from the same places. And we can't stick our heads in the sand and just ignore that and hope it's going to get better. So I would just encourage us to be imaginative about that and be courageous about that and be direct about that and get after it. Otherwise, we're going to be doing this again in some other town in America, and that's going to be very, very sad, and we're never going to forgive ourselves for that. So let's take the opportunity that you have provided to do the right thing and do the necessary difficult work here. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield the balance.
Gentleman yields. Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our 9/11 first responders, survivors, and families here today. As we mark 25 years since September 11th, I think it's important that we take a clear-eyed look at what has changed since that terrible day and where we still need to improve. The 9/11 Commission helped drive some of the most consequential reforms to our national security system. We became better at sharing information, coordinating across agencies, and connecting the federal government with state and local partners. Those reforms have saved lives and made our country safer. But the world did not stand still. Our adversaries adapted, and threats we face today are different in more important ways from the threat environment we confronted in the years immediately following 9/11. That is one of the central lessons of this review. We cannot assume that the structures we built for one era will automatically work for the next one. We need an intelligence community that can detect emerging threats and confront them with the whole of government cooperation. And we, as Congress, need to ensure that the IC is well equipped to face these challenges while providing effective oversight to hold these institutions accountable. Security and liberty should not be opposing goals. Americans should never have to choose between being safe or being free. Our national security policies must protect both. At the same time, we also have a responsibility that goes beyond policy. For many Americans, September 11th is now history rather than a lived experience. A generation has grown up without personally remembering that horrific day. That makes it even more important that we preserve the lessons of what happened, not only the failures that preceded the attacks, but also the extraordinary courage that followed. The passengers and crew of Flight 93, the first responders, the ordinary Americans who ran toward danger showed us what service and sacrifice look like. As we consider this report, our job is to honor that sacrifice by learning from the past and preparing responsibly for the future threat environment. 25 years later, that work is not finished. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields. Ms. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding, but also for arranging this visit here to Shanksville. I want to thank our co-chairs, Representative Stefanik and Gottheimer, for their incredible work. You know, the National Park Service, the first responders that have spoken with us, the families, most of all, of the Flight 93 heroes, we honor you, we thank you on this hallowed ground. It's been an amazing day. I can't believe it's been 25 years. It's unbelievable. And it's difficult for me to properly express my gratitude to the heroes of United Flight 93. In short, I owe them my life. On the morning of September 11th, I was not only in Washington, D.C., I was working directly across the street from the United States Capitol. If those passengers and crew members of Flight 93 hadn't acted, if they hadn't so bravely sacrificed their own lives to bring down that plane, I have zero doubt that I believe that it would have hit the Capitol, and I would have been one of the hundreds, if not thousands, of killed in that devastation. It is a debt that I will never be able to repay, and I'm truly honored to have been able to meet the family members of those who paid the ultimate price for our nation. Our government and our intelligence agencies knew these terrorist threats existed. The alarms were flashing red. And yet, as the 9/11 Commission found, we were not communicating with each other, and it cost the lives of nearly 3,000 Americans. The report we are about to vote on today, which I support, shows that the world has changed drastically over the past 25 years. However, the alarm is still flashing red. We have the widespread proliferation of low-cost drones, artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, giving terrorists and our adversaries new ways to harm our nation and our families and our values, our very way of life. The report we will release today provides Congress, the intelligence community, and the public a roadmap to keep the American people safe. We must do more to avoid the mistakes of the past. We owe you all the accountability, the transparency. We must do more to honor the lives that we lost here. I thank you. This has been a humbling and amazing experience, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. A gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the family members of the 40 first responders in the National Park Service for helping to personalize this beautiful memorial that we visited today. The tour of the Flight 93 Memorial and our subsequent discussion has been the perfect background to highlight the importance of this report. While significant reforms were made in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks that have allowed our nation to confront threats from those that aim to destroy our nation and the values we represent, there's no doubt that the threat environment has shifted in the 25 years since 9/11. This report is an essential step in identifying the threats that exist today and how we can work together in unity to close gaps that exist to keep Americans safe. I want to thank the co-chairs for their bipartisan work on this report. It's in remembering the bravery and sacrifice of those heroes on September 11, 2001 that we can identify where we failed, where we have succeeded since, and where we can improve in the future to ensure that, as one of the family members said about her grandson when he was at the site, that the good guys continue to win. We must never forget, and we must commit to educating future generations about the heroism displayed 25 years ago. So I support this report. I thank the chairman, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Tinney.
I just want to say thank you again to the chairman. Thank you to everyone here at the Park Service, the heroes' families, everyone who was involved in this, the friends of the Flight 93 organization, and obviously our two chairs, Representative Stefanik, Representative Gottheimer. We're at a point where everything my colleagues have said is true. This ferocious and evil attack on our country, it was horrific and stunning for us. The biggest terrorist attack in our nation's history on our own soil against innocent civilians, not against military installations. And yet we continue, as a member of the New York State delegation and a lifelong member of the state of New York, we continue to have issues where we do not have cooperation and interoperability between our law enforcement, whether in the state of New York, our federal agents, our intelligence, and that's why this commission report is so important to emphasize that. We have influences and government leaders in my own state of New York where the worst tragedy in history has occurred, and yet we continue to have to fight to get information sharing, laws passed by our state legislature in New York to prevent our law enforcement from working together. Recently, our governor has declined and actually wrote a law and signed into law a law that would prevent us and our government, our local officials from cooperating with the 287G program to keep our communities safe. But I really commend the work of the committee and the subcommittee on getting this done. It's really important that we continue the implementation of this report and make it better as the threats we face are even worse. And I'm really pleased with that, and I really just wanted to say I'm just completely grateful that we have the families here to know that we are fighting and trying to do everything we can to make sure this doesn't happen again on our soil. In light of that, and no American should ever lose a family member, a friend, and no loved one should ever face this kind of evil on our soil. And to fail to learn the critical lessons of 9/11 would be a tragedy again for all of us. And I really just want to commend the heroes of Flight 93 and for this absolutely incredible memorial. It was just amazing to see the confluence of evil with the beauty of your remembrance for these people and their heroic saving of so many people in our communities and across the country. And I just want to say thank you to you and thank you to our report authors. This is a great step forward into bringing us closer together and preventing this from happening in the future. And I yield.
Gentlewoman from New York yields. Here. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I'm a better person for having come today. I really am. And I remember 9/11 and how we were in Texas and people weren't smiling. I mean, it went on for like a week. And so my staff was nice enough to write remarks I'm not going to read. They're well-meaning, but we can't. 100 million people have been born in this country since the events of September 11th. Almost half the country doesn't have a living memory. The pronouns on September 12th were us and we, because this country has never been stopped when we're united. We've accomplished everything we've ever set out to do when we're united. Taking on Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany synchronously and crushing that evil. We did it because we were united. We were united when we took on these terrorists. And you can't remember September of 2001? 90+% of Americans were agreeing on what we should do next. You can't get 90% of Americans today to agree the sky's blue on a clear day. It was really, and we live in an evil, there's evil in this world, and it's a dangerous world, and it's ever shrinking. So I do thank Elise and Josh for this report, because you did so many things with specificity about the breaking the silos and strengthening OD&I and the importance of analytic expertise, the whole society approach, public-private partnerships, recognizing new threats, counterintelligence, leveraging technology, innovative flexibility, and American ingenuity will help tremendously. But we sometimes have to have uncomfortable conversations. And there's newly emerging prominent political voices that are talking about America deserved 9/11. And I could not vehemently disagree more with this kind of dangerous rhetoric. This country's far from perfect, but doesn't mean we're not great. And as Josh said, and you took the words right out of my mouth, the greatest country history has ever known. Here, absolutely. It's our greatest calling, not just the people on this committee, but Congress as a whole, to make sure that we protect American lives. Because if you're not safe, then you're not free. And without life, you're not going to have a pursuit of liberty, or you're not going to have liberty, and you're not going to have a pursuit of happiness. And my takeaway here is that we can accomplish anything so long as we stay focused on the correct pronouns, which is us and we. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Before we go any further, first off, I want to associate myself with the comments of the colleagues on this committee. This has been a great honor to be here today with all of you. I appreciate it. Before we take up the vote on this commission report, I want to say a word of thank you to the staff who contributed and worked so hard. We could not run it without you. You guys just do so much. This is the evidence of the contribution that you make day in and day out. Thank you guys so much for all you're doing. It's now in order to consider the committee's 9/11 report for public release. The question is on agreeing to the public release of this committee's report entitled House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence 9/11 Commission Review Final Report. So many as are in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the report's release is agreed to. Pursuant to Clause 2 L of House Rule 11, all members are entitled to not less than 2 calendar days to file supplemental, minority, additional, or dissenting views in writing. I ask unanimous consent that staff be authorized to make necessary conforming, technical, and clerical changes to the committee's 9/11 report. Without objection, so ordered. If there's no further business, this committee stands adjourned with my thanks.